Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Treasure of Innocence live session on Mind Speaks. And before I start talking about the NGO and our program, I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining this session and taking out the time to listen to us. To tell you about Treasures of Innocence, it is a non for profit organization and has been working in the field of empowering children from different backgrounds. The organization relentless socioeconomic marginalized children to become more self-reliant. The NGO works with government-aided schools and they reach out to a number of children with various kinds of learnings and help them in different aspects, assessing talents and also to build up their language skills, life skills, and also vocational training for sustainability. The organization is under the leadership of the founder, Miss Rani, and is filled with motivated people and supports come from homemakers to professionals and from students to educators. TOI was conceived with the belief that creativity fosters talent, which in turn drives success in the 21st century. We empower children to lead life with courage, curiosity, confidence, and creativity. Now, coming to our program, Mind Speaks is a program where the brilliant team members who have been an internal part of our organization are going to talk about their journey and experience with the organization. We also invite speakers who align with our initiatives.
Welcome to all of you, to all and sundry. Today we are back again with another session of Mind Speaks by Treasures of Innocence. And I can assure you that today you are going to be hooked to the program all through, as we are going to celebrate Teachers' Day in a very different way. As we all know that 5th September is celebrated as Teachers' Day and it is the birthday of Sir Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who was an Indian philosopher, and not only that, he was the second president of India. We are privileged enough to have with us on board Professor Milind Sakhardande and Annapurna Sakhardande. They are our honored guests and they are going to enlighten us regarding the habits and habitats, uh, regarding the topic habits and habitats. So we request all of you to be patient and listen, be with us, listen to what they are going to say. Please be with us. We are going to introduce you to Mr. Sakhardande and Mrs. Sakhardande. Mr. Sakhardande is an associate professor of mechanical engineer in Goa College of Engineering, and Annapurna Sakhardande is an assistant professor of civil engineering at Don Bosco College of Engineering, which is also located in Goa. So, as we can see, both of them complement each other, and we already know that both of them are professionally an engineer and a professor. So, sir, if you are going to say a few words about yourself.
Uh, Thank you so much, Adrija. I hope I'm audible to all the audience around. Thank you, Rani and Sharmista, who are there live and commenting. Thanks for the welcome. Very good evening to all of you. We are very much pleased to be with Treasures of Innocence today because today is one of the most important days in our lives. I've been in teaching for almost 26 years now, and Purna also has almost spent a decade in teaching. And we never had opportunities to be live on Facebook and to address various topics. And I am so much thankful to all of you for giving us the opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much.
Before we would like to begin, uh, we would like to pay homage to Bharat Ratna, late Pranab Mukherjee, our ex-president, and then wish everyone who is watching us a very happy Teachers' Day. Uh, we hope this you will enjoy this session. And anything, Purna, you would like to add to this?
Yes, this is the first time me and Milind we are talking to a huge audience and such a mixed up audience. So I really hope whatever we speak, you all find it relevant. Uh, Please pardon us, excuse us if we are going somewhere little out track, because as teachers, we have this habit of going on speaking, going on speaking. So bear with us. Again, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks to you, thank you, thanks to both of you to be with us today, to be there with us. So, Sir, my first question is, how did you get in touch with TOI?
Yeah, it's a long story to cut long story short. Uh, I remember we had gone to Coimbatore for some purchase of our department, some equipment purchase. Me along with my head of the department, Dr. Rajesh Prabhugaonkar, and Sridhar Marshakar, my colleague. And on the way back, we were traveling from Mangalore to Goa, and we met this vibrant lady, uh, Rani Madam, and her family in the same compartment, and we started talking to each other, and then we exchanged a lot of views about children, because she basically belongs to an organization which deals with children, and we belong to organizations which deal with elders, that is students who are aged 18 to 21. So there were a lot of exchange of views, and it continued. We have been calling each other on so many occasions. Whenever I need some support, I give her a call. She calls if she needs some help in any regards, and we hope that we continue this association for a long period of time till we are there.
Sure, sir, of course. Sir, on that note, as we already know that today's topic is the habit and habitat. So
Yes.
can you share some few words regarding the topic?
Yeah. Habits and habitats, if you look at these two words, they are basically, they have similar spellings, or they are pronounced also in the similar way. But there is a lot of difference. Uh, we get confused with these two words. What are habits? When a child is born, the first teacher of the child is the mother. And whatever we learn from our mother in the beginning of our life, till the teachers enter in our life, whatever positive things we learn from them, as repeated in terms of repeated instructions, we tend to develop or acquire those type of qualities, and we build some acquire those qualities, and those qualities are called as habits. So those are consistently coming out of us. Now this is one thing, that is, we develop our habits through our parents instructions, through our teachers instructions. The second type of habits development happens in the environment you live in the surroundings. So if you are living in surroundings, you tend to learn something from the surroundings, and you tend to improve your habits and develop your habits. Now
Yes.
there's a basic classification of habits: is you have good habits and you have bad habits. Now, what are good habits? Good habits are like brushing your teeth at night before going to the bed, or switching off your lights when you go out of the house. Okay, but these are not much talked about. No one bothers about good habits because they have to be there, present in you. But bad habits, we always speak about bad habits. We always speak about a person who is smoking. Smoking is a bad habit, right? If
Of course.
we fall in the trap of bad habits, it is very difficult for us to come out of it. You need lot of self motivation and self willpower. So it is always better that in our children we inculcate good habits. This is what I would tell or speak to my people about habits. Now, habitat. What do you think is habitat? The basic definition of habitat may be coined from uh, where plants are there, or where animals are there, or we relate habitat to ecosystems. But in today's talk, we will relate habitat to human beings. That is our habitation and places where we live in. So let us call our surroundings, our place where we live in, as habitat, as for today, as for relating the topic today. So our topic is habit and habitat. So we will talk in terms of habitat, in today's context?
Sure, sir. Sir, yes, today's topic is habit and habitats, and you mentioned about both of them. But do you think we can somehow link these two, like habit and habitats? And if so, how can we exactly link habits with habitats?
Adrija, we have to link habits with habitats. See, habits are derived from habitats. The place where we live in, I have already spoken about it, that many a times we develop habits in the places we live in through environment, right? So habits, so we are basically human beings and we are habit forming animals. So habits are shaping our lifestyles today. The way we behave, the way we move out, you know, we are having a different lifestyle today. Uh, our living is dependent on what type of habits are there in us. Fine. Now, how do we link our habits to habitats? This is a very tricky question. As for today's topic, if we talk about habitats and linking habits to habitats, we are living in a society, right? So we are actually having our own habitat or habitation. If we are having good habits, each and every person has good habits in the society, we are not going to spoil our habitation. We are not going to spoil our environment. We'll take simple example. We need to keep our country clean. Our Prime Minister Modi ji has come out with a mission called as Swachh Bharat. Now, if I take it only for myself, what I'll do, whatever garbage is there in my house, I will throw it in neighbor's house because I will keep my house clean, right? Neighbor will do the same thing. So what happens finally is that garbage is thrown on the road. Why? Because the road is public property. No, it is not public property. It is our property. We are the public. So today we have to follow certain systems wherein our garbages should go through the garbage disposal system to the garbage disposal sites. This type of habits we should inculcate so that we keep our surroundings clean. See, we are moving in our cars. Suppose there is a traffic jam. We keep our ignition on. What we are doing? We are polluting the environment. If we switch it off, these are small things, where our good habits can work for the betterment of the habitat. Purna was telling me one
there was a
story.
recent incident that occurred with us when one of my colleagues, Professor Shruti, when she was traveling, a gentleman in the vehicle, a four-wheeler ahead of us, he dropped a packet of chips, a cover of chips, outside the window. So she approached him, she overtook him, and she gave it back to him, gave it back to the gentleman. And he took it back. Voluntarily, he took it back. He realized that it was his mistake. Again, that is his habit. It's our habit. Eat something, throw it out of the window. Because it's the road, it's public property, everyone can misuse it, right? But the moment she returned it, he took it back and he kept it inside the car. Now, this must have happened in everyone's life. All of us must have witnessed something like this. A person in front has thrown something out of the vehicle. But how many of us actually approached the person and told him, Baba, this is wrong. Please keep it back. Throw it, go, take it home, throw it in the right place. A lot of us know that it is wrong, but we don't take any action because we are somewhere scared that God knows what kind of a person he is, how will he react, he may shout at me. Now here in this case, this was a lady, that guy was a gentleman, probably because it was a lady approaching him, he did not show much of arrogance in it, he just took it back, kept it back. Maybe if a guy had approached him, there would have been ego clashes, what is your problem and all that would have started. But let me tell you, it doesn't happen. This has happened with us a couple of times. When we have tried to go and correct a person, but don't throw that packet of chip out, don't throw that water bottle out. We have never come across a person who has said, no, what is your problem? Why are you interfering? Never it has happened. People take it back. People realize, and when you say, don't throw it out, and they also take it very positively. Yes, I'm sorry. Immediately people do say, I'm sorry. So these are the habits we need to inculcate slowly it will become a custom that is followed in our country, where everyone will be subconsciously thinking, "Oh, this is wrong." Someone might come and see me doing it wrong, right? So this is what I feel. If the entire habitat is like this, if entire society is like this, then this will be our habit.
So the prime reason, today in today's world, everyone wants to have own a farmhouse. If you are in a city, okay, you want to own a farmhouse. Where you want to own a farmhouse? In the village. Okay, why you want to go back to the village? Because there is no pollution. You want to go and lead a peaceful life, right? So tell me one thing, why do we need to go to the farmhouse if we can keep our habitat clean? If we can see that there is reduced pollution in our own habitat, we need not go there. We can lead a peaceful and serene life in our own habitats, right? So our habits will definitely change our habitats. This is what I mean.
Of course. So as you mentioned about the village house, about village, so can you throw some light on rural and urban habitats, the differences, the similarities between rural and urban habitats?
Yes, a lot of times I have asked this question when I was teaching a subject called low-cost housing, basically about affordable housing. If you take any person around you, any average Indian, and you ask him what is rural environment and what is urban environment, I'll tell you what will be what you can say 99.9% of the time the person will say village is somewhere you don't have electricity, village is some place where the road infrastructure is not good, some place where healthcare is bad, the government schools will be there, no hospitals, right? No internet connectivity. Some nice people might say something positive like no pollution and lots of vegetation, but our first perception about a village is something which is primitive and not developed. Now, if you try to go to textbooks and find out what is the definition of a rural environment and urban environment, there are only two things that divide these two places, and they've got nothing to do with the points that I just said. A village is a place where more than 90% of the population is supposed to be in agriculture and allied, meaning something like, say, dairy, pottery, those kind of jobs. And more than 90% people will be agriculture or allied profession. And second thing that makes that governs village is the population density. A population density of a rural environment will be way much lesser than what is of a city, somewhere around 400 to 600 per square kilometer. But now, if you see what is the actual definition and what is our perception, it's a huge difference. Now, if I try to tell you that it is not necessary that villages have to be backward, but we have just agreed and we have just accepted the fact that it is a village, so it is supposed to be that way. That is not the case. We can have good electricity, we can have good internet connectivity in villages. We have to change our mindset and say that no. So what if it is a village? So what? There are most of the people in the villages are farmers or in dairy. They have a right to good education. They have a right to good healthcare. They have a right to good infrastructure. So first and foremost, we as citizens of India, we need to understand that we need good villages. If our villages are, there was a quote somewhere that I read, you can only call a country developed when the farmer is rich, when the farmer is good enough, financially well-to-do. Unless a farmer of a country is good enough, well-to-do, you cannot call that country rich. 80% of our population is living in villages. And if they are going to be having this kind of infrastructure, then you can never have a developed India. That is the primary difference that I feel between urban and rural environment.
Of course.
Thank
Of
you.
course, we already know a lot of points why people prefer city life more. But still, I want to ask, what are the main what are the main, things for which people actually prefer city life more than
Yeah.
rural?
This is a very and anyone in the audience also will be able to answer this question. Uh, why people prefer city life? You watch any Hindi film where a village is shown and the hero will run towards the city and he will modify himself into a full-fledged action hero. Jokes apart, why do we move from cities to villages to cities? The first and foremost thing is the prosperity, economic prosperity. Second thing is the job opportunities. There are more opportunities in cities. And third is educational prospects. Many of the times we move from villages to cities because there are more higher education systems in cities. This is the reason. But if I consider the best part in rural life today is health, because what we do in cities and what people eat in villages is or rural areas are two different things. Fine. So if you look at villages, there is low pollution in villages. If you get everything fresh from the farms, point of origin, so you can go to the garden, pick up the tomato and potato and cook your sabji on that night. What is happening to people in the city today? We even don't know how old are the vegetables or how old are the fruits which come to us because of the entire pesticides and preservatives which are there. And finally, we are actually losing our health. So I would prefer to go back to village life. But how? When my village is made on par with city, I will have all the facilities available in the villages. So I would add one point here. Instead of having smart cities, if the government thinks about smart villages, we will be in a better position for development because the entire development of the country depends on the economic prosperity of villages. So if the government smart city projects, you consider smart village projects, then villages will come on par with the cities and we need not move from villages to cities. Only thing is, or whatever facilities are available in cities, we get them to villages. That is what I feel. People prefer city life, but I feel that we can make a change here. We can stay where we are and come we can actually convert that place of stay where we are to the life we want to live.
Of course, sir. So, I would take a small break now. I've asked you a lot of questions. So, we'll take a short break and we'll play a video. So, Gangotri, if you can please play the video.
Do it slowly.
পুরানো সেই দিনের কথা ভুলবি কি রে, আয়ুষী চোখের দেখা প্রাণীর কথা সে কি ভোলা যায়। পুরানো সেই দিনের কথা ভুলবি কি রে, আয়ুষী চোখের দেখা প্রাণীর কথা সে কি ভোলা যায়। আয় রে একটিবার রে সখা প্রাণীর মাঝে আয়, মোরা সুখে দুঃখে কাঁথা গাবো জুড়াবে তার। আয় রে একটিবার রে সখা প্রাণীর মাঝে আয় মোরা সুখে দুঃখে কথা গাবো রঞ্জুরা বেতা মোরা ভোরের বেলা ফুল তুলেছি তুলেছি দলা বাজিয়ে বাসি গান গেছি ফুলের তলায় মোরা ভোরের বেলা ফুল তুলেছি তুলেছি দলায় বাজিয়ে বাসি গান গেছি ফুলের তলায় ওই মাঝে হলো ছাড়া ছাড়ি গেলেম কে কোথায় আবার দেখা জড়িয়ে হলো সখা মনের মাঝে আর পুরানো সেদিনের কথা ভুলবি কি রে আয়ুষী চোখের দেখা প্রাণীর কথা সে কি ভোলা যায়
So this was a very sweet video made by our organization TOI, and all the children here are TOI's children, and we are very proud of them for all their performances and their academic results and everything. So the singer, the back of the track, can you guys guess that who is the singer? Okay, so I won't delay it anymore. Of course, the singer, like the one who sang the song, is none other than Annapurna Sakhardande. And I would like to know from you guys that how are you connected to music as well? Like, even though you guys are very busy with your profession as being a professor of an engineering college, it's not so easy. It is very difficult. You have so many works, but still you are connected to music and you sing so well. So how do you manage? And if you can brief out a bit about your music.
Okay. You said that being engineering professor is difficult. I would say that being engineering professor is easy because of music.
Exactly. Exactly. And we are not managing music. You can say it is the other way around. Music is managing us. We are sustaining because of music. Teaching nowadays is very stressful, and we are handling an age group. Which I wouldn't say they give us stress, but they themselves are so stressed that looking at them we get stressed. So to handle all these stresses, you need to have something else in your life, and any hobby for that matter. It is not difficult to pursue because that hobby is something by definition what you like to do. So when you do something that you like, you don't need to manage it. That thing manages everything. Whether
And
it is music,
it's not about even liking it. You sang so well, like it was very it sounded so good and so amazing. So do you even practice music at times when you get time?
practice.
It's a very difficult question
Shouldn't
for
ask
her.
such questions. No, I don't give much time now, but I would love to, and I'm soon going to join classes.
She is already a classically trained.
I got it. I got myself trained in my foundation years, so that is required, of course. Any hobby, you cannot just do it sitting at home. You have to be serious about everything. So yes, I did take training. My first Guruji was Rajendra Singhbar from Mapsa, and then I took lessons from Dr. Lakshmikant Sakari. So yes, I did take it seriously, but now I am I've become slightly lazy. So soon I'm going to start it again.
Okay,
Okay,
then
thank
more person who's come in our life,
Yes.
our daughter, and because of that, Probably
So,
Purna cannot give
no,
time.
I cannot sing. I'm dancing rather with her. So it will take some time to get back to singing and practicing and singing. Yes.
We can see the comments on the Facebook. Thank you so much for all the comments, Ajay, Nutan Tai, Sharmista ma'am, Rani, Jasmine. Thank you so much. We hope you are enjoying this chat. And if you have anything to say regarding the topic, kindly type so that we also can, you can
Include
be
it.
a part of this discussion. Please do
Yes,
it.
of course. You can ask questions as well. And okay,
Yes.
moving ahead. The song was really nice. Anyway, moving ahead. What do you think are the primary differences between children in village and children living in cities? Uh, like children coming from rural or urban background?
Okay, I will take this question. There are many differences. The first and foremost is I will try and speak about the point which students like the most: sports. If
Yeah.
you see children from villages, they are mostly into playing field games. They are mostly into playing outdoor games. They have their own sets of limited resources with which they play. So if you see, they will not have professional cricket bats or stumps. They will take some sticks, but they will play.
Yes.
Um, and in that they are developing their physical strengths and they have a lot of stamina. Our city children today, they are also playing cricket, they are also playing football, but on gadgets, on mobile phones. uh, we know that those who are really interested go outdoors and play, but I have seen most of the children are now fully connected to the cell phones, and they are only interested in playing games on. Luckily, we are so happy that this PUBG is banned. Uh, I
The
thank,
younger crowd is going to
yeah. I thank the
really
government,
curses.
but
But
they will be saving
that's
a
the fact.
lot of time now from those typical gadget games. The second thing is the social life. Um, in villages, children are knowing each other in their family as well as their neighbors, and probably the children might know the people throughout the village, everyone. But in cities, these children who are there in cities will know everyone in the world, but on social media. But they will not know in person who is staying next door to them. They might not know who is staying in their building. This is the real life problem today. There is no direct one-to-one physical connect. They are mostly city life people are mostly they are having small groups, their own groups. They will go for overnights, they will go for long drives, they will go for parties. And village children are not like this.
And
Village children will have.
and this social life is so superficial that a person who's having so many Facebook friends and WhatsApp friends, these people are lonely in their real life. These people are the ones who are, you see so many people going into this depression and all these kind of health conditions, but they have 4,500 friends. There's nobody to talk to when you actually need them. Whereas if you see a person coming from a rural background, a person who has a lot of joint family and people around, they don't face these problems. They have people whom they can go and directly talk to. There is no social pressure of looking good, doing good, or any kind of peer pressure. They can handle it.
Yes. One more important aspect is the education. I think uh, children from cities have got more better education facilities. They have smart classrooms. They have digital connections. They have good teachers. The problem with villages is their education system is still into only books and chalk and talk type of teaching method. The teachers will talk only what is there in the books. That difference is still existing in the city and uh, the village children. I think Teja ma'am has got she has commented what if the city children don't accept children from rural areas as their friends because of the difference in lifestyle? Yeah, it's true, but the problem is whenever you uh, we spoke about habits. Teja teacher is teaching my daughter in primary school, so I feel that we spoke about habits first. We have to inculcate habits of friendship, maybe whoever it is. That habits, if we inculcate in our children, I don't think so there will be problem in, getting someone from a village coming to your school. There will be initial problems, but there are problems. But I feel that if we put good habits in our city children, they will definitely accept the village children.
And I would like to respond to Teja ma'am's question. Actually, that happens. This happens a lot in some places. But the issue is, why do we need to, go to someone who is not similar to us? If we are self-sufficient, if we are confident with ourselves, a village student, if he is confident himself, he will tie up with another village student. Or why do we need only someone? See, usually, in our whole lifetime, now that at my age, when I go back, like when in college, we had a huge friend circle. But once you pass out, how many people are actually in touch with you? So eventually, it is a matter of one or two people who are your friends, and they need not be from your college. Also, they can be from your workplace, or they may not be from your workplace. They are from your college. Somewhere randomly you meet a person. So finally, your frequencies match with someone based on your thought process. It doesn't match because of your habits. It doesn't match because of your habitat. So this question of village children mixing with cities is actually not much of that relevance, because both have a thought process, whether they are from village or from cities. That if that thought process matches, then they will definitely be friends. Just because they're not from same habitats, nothing will stop them from bonding.
I think there is one very nice point which is just coming in from Ajit
Ajit,
Bhai, I will call him.
yes.
He says that
We don't.
if there is a reciprocal mix program in cities and villages for students and counterpart, that will be the best thing which will happen. And I feel that NGOs can take charge of this. You can create some programs where village children will come and city children will come together, and there is a bonding between them. I feel this is a very nice point which our Ajit Bhai has spoken today, right? We will move to the next point. Most importantly, food. Village children, if you see, they will be interested in traditional food. Okay, they whatever is cooked at home, they will be enjoying.
Yeah. One
Whereas
reason is also finances, but eventually they do enjoy something which is traditionally cooked
and healthy.
and healthy. They enjoy it. They like it.
What about city children? Today we are interested in only pizzas. We are interested in burgers. We are interested in junk food, fast food. So food habits, I would definitely give it to the village students. They have better food habits.
Of course,
I'm so happy that there are so many. My colleague, Professor Nilesh Paldesai, who is head of the IT department, is just joined in. Thank you so much, Nilesh sir. And he is saying internet is breaking the social barrier. I know you will ask this question because you are from information technology. He was the director of information technology department of Goa government. So I am so much thankful to you. Village and the world has already become a global village. Absolutely right. But in case of India, we still have problems with internet facilities.
In cities.
In forget talking. See what Purna says is we have problems in cities. So reaching to villages and covering all the areas with good internet connections will be a very big
definitely
task.
break this barrier.
We will definitely break
That's
this
why
barrier.
we said right in the beginning, we need smart villages. We need smart
We
villages.
need smart villages. We have to come with a concept of smart villages now. That is what we said.
Yes. Yeah, Rani ma'am mentioned that yes, sir, we are working on that. connecting children from different locations. They are sharing their thoughts and emotions within each other. Yes, actually, TOI has this program where, exchange program kind of, where city people get a chance to talk with village people and slum areas. They interact with each other, share their problems, and that is how the exchange program is done. So we actually have that kind of a
You
program.
people,
Okay, so
you people are doing a wonderful job, and I definitely know that through today's discussion, you will get so many people who are there in the in our chat box today who are whom I call my gurus. So they are also, I'm so thankful to them. They have also joined, maybe from my music field, or maybe from my family, or maybe from my institution. There are so many here. I am so much thankful to them, and they are all responding on the chat. So we are so much thankful to you. Thank you so much. Uh, Ajit
okay,
Bhai has got one more point. Glamour is inspiring cities to absolutely right.
Yes.
And knowledge is more of inspiration in villages. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Um,
okay. So moving ahead, my next question to you guys, as we are talking about technology, village and urban. What are the main effects of urbanization on children behavior? Like, are there effects, and if there are, then what are the effects?
Urbanization and children
Children's
behavior.
behavior.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, see what usually happens here in, as I told you, urban, so-called urban is everything is available, and sometimes when everything is available, it is not valued. Abundance sometimes can be a bit of negative point. Like let me tell you now, our era as a student and our era as a teacher, things have totally changed. When when we were pursuing, we used to literally hide the books in library, whatever content we required, because shortage of books would be there. So if I need something books, I can issue only two. I need the third one in next week. Someone will take it, hide it in some place, some corner of the library. Now that is not happening because people are not going to library. I don't know how many people from the colleges have their cards and all occupied. So there is too much of abundance. That is one of the problems I feel that has occurred because of urbanization. Too much, and in spite of having too much, another thing, let me tell you, we do not acknowledge, we do not have the gratitude towards what we have. As urban kids, we have access to data, internet. Primarily, the first purpose of internet was for knowledge. It was meant for knowledge dissipation. But right now, what are we using internet for? We're using it for communication. How much of internet is actually used for studying and study resources? It's mostly being used for communication. Correct? I think that is one of the drawbacks.
There is a difference in culture. Okay. Of village and city students. Gratitude, the attitude of the students. Okay. In fact, village students will talk, and our urban students will chat. This is
Exactly.
the basic difference. This is the effect of urbanization on children's behavior.
Yes.
Today, they are more interested in chatting on WhatsApp. In fact, if you find a family going to a restaurant and they are sitting on one table, the mother, father, and children will send messages on WhatsApp to what you are going to eat today.
Yes.
That is what is happening today. So I feel too much of involvement in the mobile phones, in the gadgets we have. I feel Purna, you should tell that
Yeah,
Taj story.
another thing, I came across one TEDx TED Talk video. Okay, this was a study carried out in Harvard, and this was on the attack on Taj Hotel in Bombay. Okay, and this study, basically, the person who was speaking was a professor, and he perhaps asked his students a simple question, that when the attack happened, there were around 1,700 people inside, locked inside Taj Hotel, and out of them, 600 were employees. Obviously, all of them knew how to get out of the hotel. Where is the exit? So he posed a question: how many people, according to you, do you think must have left the hotel? The students guessed obviously maybe around 25% or something. But to our surprise, not a single employee of Taj left the hotel. And those who left, they left with the guests, and some of them, after taking the guests out, after evacuating the guests, they returned back. Now, why is that happening? So, when the question was posed to the management, how do you justify this kind of behavior? Because this is not something which is expected from anybody. It's a human instinct to run away from the situation where there is danger. So they said that they're not hiring rather people from metropolitan cities. They are hiring people from small towns who are well rooted, who know the importance of community living. Okay, they are hiring. When they hire people, they take a feedback from teachers. Uh, Whether the student is showing gratitude, whether the student is thankful, whether the student is taking part in organizing. So these are the things that Taj management takes care when they hire their employees. You will see these particular qualities abundant when a person comes from village, when a person is living in a joint family, when a person is living with their grandparents, because it's the grandparents who teach the manners. It's the grandparents who teach you that how you're supposed to behave with old people, right? This is lacking. What happens in a urban with an urban child? He's born and brought up in with maybe a ayah or sometimes in crash, and the child will say, "Why should I thank you for taking care of me? My mother and my father is paying you for it." So right from the childhood, that is lacking in the kids who are living in cities. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I agree with your points. So my next question is, as we talked about food and everything, what are the challenges of underprivileged children in terms of basic needs like food, clothing, shelter, and exactly how can they be addressed? Like, how can we address them?
Food, you think?
Food, see, basically, food, I feel the problem lies in both the situations. In case of underprivileged children, the problem is basically finances. They don't have the resources to buy their own food, so they are undernourished. But that doesn't mean that rich people are well nourished. People who are coming from cities are well nourished. Here, the problem in villages, because of the finances, you find the kids are undernourished, whereas you go to cities, they are malnourished. If you come to my college, a lot of times I see my students eating samosas in their lunch break, right? They have the money, now they don't have the money, but they're not eating the right thing. The diet is not proper. So there are two problems which are faced. Mainly in case of underprivileged, it is undernourishment, whereas in case of those who are privileged, it is malnourishment, right? When it comes to,
Okay.
yeah.
No. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. The other problem that I feel is shelter. Okay, I will talk about shelter because shelter is very close to my heart, coming from civil engineering background. See, what has happened in our country, a lot of things we are losing as we are advancing. It is good to forget things which are not relevant, but it is bad to forget things which are, a foundation of our civilization. A lot of ways of constructing houses which were followed in olden times are still relevant, but we don't follow them. Like if you go to Jammu Kashmir and northeastern states which are vulnerable to earthquakes, there were different ways of constructing which were practiced earlier. You know, they had, but now what has happened as we are advancing, people are constructing houses out of concrete and steel, which are giving problems, which are developing cracks. But if you go to those older houses which were constructed out of bamboos or the stone pitched walls, they are still intact. So it's not necessary. What I'm trying to say is, it is not necessary that you need to spend a lot. When I'm talking about concrete and steel, you need to spend. You have a pinch on your pocket. You need to spend. But it is not necessary to provide a dwelling unit. Some of our students in our college had even proposed a 58 square meter house, which is supposed to be a minimal requirement for economically weaker section. They had even made a house development plan within around 3 to 5 lakhs. Okay, now I'm saying 3 to 5 lakhs doesn't mean that house is going to come down when there will be an earthquake. It's going to be as safe. It's going to have the same quality of living. 5 lakhs is nothing. Few years back, one place security post was inaugurated where one security personnel sits. That post was costing 10 lakhs. And here I'm talking about a dwelling unit where there'll be a toilet. The main problem in our country is the sanitation. There'll be a toilet which has its own independent sewerage system, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a living room. Everything together using the simple low cost techniques without compromising on strength and quality can be provided in a matter of somewhere around 5 lakhs. Now, for you as a organization, for me as an individual, and a society together, how difficult it is to provide these people who are underprivileged with a dwelling unit. We see people getting 90%, 98% sitting in pipes under the street lamp and studying. Why cannot we as society provide them with a simple dwelling unit? Correct? This is
Of
one of the
course.
major problems.
Regarding
Of course it is.
clothing,
Of course
I
it
think
is.
I will just put across one thing. See, NGOs are there to connect underprivileged to allied schools, or probably schools which have higher middle class, or that type of students who are learning there. Most of the people in cities, or most of the allied people or higher middle class, have excess clothes. So this clothes, probably, there can be a connect through parent teacher association, and one day there can be a collection, and such clothes can be easily given to this underprivileged kids, which are excess clothes. Means they are not bad, but they are excess. How many times do we wear? If we have 5 shirts, how many times? 5, 10 shirts, 15 shirts. Nowadays, young generation want to change uh, costumes every every second. So you might have so many wardrobes full, and you are not going to use them. So better you transfer this, and you are the people. NGOs are the people who can connect the parent teachers association from schools who have got this type of children studying and underprivileged. So this connect should be developed so that clothing can be taken care of. There are some people who sponsor. You can connect to those people, and you can take care of their clothing.
Of course.
Yeah.
Uh,
Of course, sir.
Recently,
I
one of the
agree.
schools had even collected clothes. Now, many times we have clothes which are not fitting us. We bought them because of some sale, and after some days, we either outgrew them or we lost weight, and these are not fitting us. What do we do with them? They are brand new clothes, so they are stacked. We don't have storage. We can always give this away, but what happens is, how do we give it away? It's not that we as Indians don't like to share. We do like to share, but we need a pathway. Now, some years back, Swaraj school, my daughter's school, had organized. When I said the word, I just said they are collecting clothes. Everyone wanted to give away. Everyone had good clothes, but the problem is this doesn't happen very frequently. This needs to happen, and we need someone to take care of this.
Of course, sir. Of course, I agree.
And one more
There are
point, I would
few
like
questions.
to, I would like to just add one more point. Other than food, clothing, and shelter, if you see the new education policy, we want to have our children develop holistically. Okay, they should be a total package. They should be good in sports. They should be good in drama, culture. So I had one professor. I discussed with one professor, Gajesh Usgaonkar, who is my colleague, and he gave me a brilliant idea of connecting to people who have just retired. When a person retires, he doesn't know what is to be done. He probably very next day he is completely free, and those 2 3 years after retirement, if they can be utilized for social causes, like if some talented person is retired, he can be connected to underprivileged children, and he can transfer his qualities, his skills to the children. This automatically will try to improve the children holistically.
Of course, sir. Sir, there are few questions on the comment in the comment. I would like to address them to you.
Yeah, yeah.
First being Teja Sawant has asked that how to make and be satisfied with what we have than be in search for more. Meaning, students are always curious being, and one way or the other, they find out things that they desire but not have. How to help the kids understand what is necessary and what is not? It's a very good question. So, thank
Very, very nice question by Teja madam, Teja teacher. Our biggest problem is generations over generations. The problem is my kid should get
get
everything
that I didn't get.
that I didn't get. Am I right? I didn't get when I was a kid, so that things should be given to my kid because I didn't get it when I was a kid. Now, when I was a kid, if I asked my parents that time, I was told by my parents regarding our financial conditions, regarding that my mother used to tell me we cannot afford that, and I used to listen to my mother and I used to not ask. Today the problem is different. Today when I am earning, even if the thing which is not required for my daughter, I will go and buy it because I didn't get it during my time. We should not have such type of thinking in life. We should not have. All parents today of children should think that these children will behave in the same way what way you had behaved when you were a kid, and they will also respect you. If you give your children what they don't want other than what they want, your people are giving their children what they don't want also. Why? Because today it is that both the parents are working, both are going out, the kid is alone at home. So somehow that kid has to be kept busy. So whatever gadgets are there, you give him. Whatever new mobiles which are coming in the market, you give him. This is what is happening today. The parents should decide. Teja meant it is the parents' duty to take care of such situations, because
And this can
if a child gets a 15,000 wala phone or 20,000 wala phone in the class, the child sitting next to that particular child will come at home and ask their parents, उसने 15,000 20,000 का मोबाइल लिया है, मुझे भी दे दो. This is what is happening today, and as parents we are forced to give him. We are for this you, instead of doing that, you try to please tell your kids, no, we cannot afford that 15,000, and you are, even if we afford, tell him that this particular gadget is not required at your age.
correct.
Be straightforward and tell the kid. He will cry for some time, but he will realize. This is what we expect.
And this has to be done very early. You cannot do these kind of changes once they go to college, because by then they are habituated to getting whatever they want. This has to be done when they are kids. Once the person has grown up, things, I'm not saying it cannot be controlled, it can still be controlled. We have lots of examples around. You can cite the examples around. But sooner the better. As a child, when they are kids, that time only they need to be told, set your priorities right. Set your priorities right. If you want a mobile phone, you will not get a cycle. What is more important, playing on a mobile phone or playing on a cycle? So it's as simple as that. Get the priorities right. They should understand to set their priorities.
absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. So moving ahead, as we talked about what should we do, what are the wrong doings and the right doings, according to your perspectives, what should we do, what shouldn't we? So what do you think, what initiatives we can take as citizens to actually uplift these conditions that we are going through, that they are facing? How we can help them as citizens, how we can uplift the conditions?
See, let me tell you, we are first and foremost, we need to be aware of what is happening around us. We find some people are, making a picture of our country as we are developed and we are developing at very fast rate. Let me tell you very clearly, there are 80% of the population of our country which do not have access to proper water supply and sanitation. So when I say do not have access to proper water supply and sanitation, what I'm saying is there are 1 in 5 houses which do not have a pipeline to their house, which do not have toilets. Okay, people are still traveling, and I'm talking about 80% of India, and they're still traveling around. And government has goals. There are goals set, And if you see those goals, you will go into depression. They have goals of having water provided within a vicinity of around 1 kilometer. Water provided within an altitude of around 100 meters. 100 meters is how many floors? Okay, if you read that, you will realize, you will be thanking God every now and then that I have a tap in my own house.
Of course. We are privileged enough to have these things. Of
Exactly,
course.
exactly. And the situations are bad in big states. I don't want to name the states because people might feel offended and all, but they're happening in big states. And when I say big state, 80%. So you imagine what is the number of what is the number of these people who are so underprivileged, right? So what we need to do is our little bit. Now we cannot construct pipeline. Me as okay, I can construct, but for me there is not much of the time, and there are a lot of limitations, but I can save water for these people, right? I can do my little bit in closing that tap, right? And let me tell you, you as an NGO, me as an individual, and we as society, you know how much it costs to construct a toilet? How much will it cost to construct a toilet? Not more than around 10 to 15,000. And if you go to proper literature, CBRI, IIT Roorkee has even proposed a toilet within 7,200 rupees to be exactly precise. Okay, let's say overheads and profits, and there is a lot of inflation and all. Let's say 15,000. 15,000, if a household is getting a toilet, you, me cannot contribute. How much pinch will we feel? Right? Now, you had this COVID situation. You saw what happened in Dharavi. There are like 40 and 100 people using a single toilet. Here, people don't have place to use a toilet, and we are talking about progress of the country. It's a very sad situation. Okay, and it's a very serious thing that we need to note about. We need to understand till we give people their dignity, give them a proper place and good living condition. You cannot call India as a prosperous country. We have to take care of our own people. Nobody from US or neighboring states is going to come and do it. We ourselves only have to do it. When such situations will be uplifted, then automatically there will be a belongingness in the society. That these people have done something for us, so we should also take care of them. We have to rise as a whole.
Of course. I agree. Of course. So moving ahead, what mistakes do you think you both of you are parents? So I would like to ask this question: that what do you think are the mistakes parents usually do while guiding their children in selecting careers or in like generally? What parents mistakes do?
As a mother, I think mother should answer this.
Okay, what mistakes we do as parents?
Yes,
I have just
as
started
parents.
5 years back, but what I have observed, okay,
Yes, like your
from
observation,
the
like
parents of my students, a lot of time, the major mistake that I have seen parents doing is we decide the careers of our kids. My parents never decided my career, neither his parents decided his career. Okay, that's why probably we like our careers. Whatever we are doing it because we like it. But the moment someone else decides what you should be doing for your whole life, things are going to go wrong. A person who tells their word, you have to become engineer without having the full knowledge about engineering, you are going to play with that person's whole life. You should pursue a career only when you like it. Otherwise, no. And a lot of time, people come, I want my child to become engineer. Now, engineering is such a broad field. You have civil, you have mechanical, you have computers, you have IT, you have n number of engineering. But they just say engineer. I want my child to become engineer. If he's not getting mechanical, let's put him in civil. If he's not getting in civil, let's put him in somewhere else. That is very, very wrong. And now it's not like that. When we were in 12th standard, we seriously wanted to become just engineers. We didn't know much of a difference. But now students know. And when they say I want to become computer engineer, make them computer engineer, put them in something else which will give them similar knowledge. We, as our role as parents, is only to push them in the right direction, in the direction which they want to go. We should not try to put them on a track. That I feel is what
It's
we are
just the
doing.
movie Three Idiots, and I think the character played by Madhavan in that movie,
Yes.
the photographer. That's what. That's what I have a student who is a mechanical engineer who is a world class DJ today, Anish Sood. So he has chased his dreams, and he is a successful DJ. If his father was in forcing him, no, you have to complete your engineering and join some job. Today he would have earned some probably 30,000 40,000. But I feel he's earning around 2 lakhs per show for one show today. So that's what.
Okay, so arriving to my last question for the evening.
Yes.
You guys are professors as well. Like you have been teaching many engineering students, and as today is Teachers' Day, I would like to know that what is the role of teachers in building personalities? What do you think is the role of teachers in building personalities?
Today, teaching is no more a one-way concept. Teaching is no more a one-way concept today. Today, teaching is more of facilitating. You are basically a director, and the student is an actor, and you have to direct him today. Today the world is following different setup of teaching altogether. It is teaching learning process now. We are not only looking at teaching, we have to also not look at what has been learned today. So it is a two way. When we were students, probably even my great grandfathers or grandfathers, when they went, probably if they had gone to school, teachers would have come and given a one way talk and gone. Today it is not like this. Today there are group discussions. Today there are cell phones. Today the students have got direct connect with the students. There is mentorship program. Okay. Then you have a concept called as flip classroom, where you can share the videos of your lectures and the students can watch the videos during their free time and then come. You can do discussions. This is what is the system today. And for today's children as students, there are n number of facilities of learning. Only thing they have to do is learn. That is what we expect as teachers. And towards the end, I would like to give one small, sort of advice to all the students, that as you climb the ladders of success in your future, where whoever is there, any of my students are there, they are, as they climb the ladders of success, please remember all those whom you meet while climbing the ladders of success. Because if you are coming down any given time, you will meet the same people, and the way you have behaved with them while going on top, they will behave in the similar way when you are coming down. This is what we expect from students. They have to respect, keep the respect, and gain respect. This is my
Of course.
message for teachers. If you have any message, Purna, you can always give.
Thank you so much, sir, for the message. Yes, ma'am.
I have only a message for teachers who are on the show, that when I joined teaching, my director had told us something when all of us were together in a meet, that as a teacher, you will be remembered most by the backbenchers, and they are going to appreciate you most because they are the people who need help. The good lot will somehow manage because they are good, okay, but the lot which is slightly less than average, it's your job to push them across the border. And when you do that, you will feel the satisfaction that because of me, this particular person has crossed the border, and that person will always remember you for lifetime. It's the big students who actually appreciate you more. So my advice to all the teachers is take care of everyone, and of course take care of yourself also.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that advice on behalf of all the teachers. So, my questions are over, and we would like to play one Hindi song sung by both our guests today in this session.
And before you play the song, Adrija, I would like to specially tell I would like to thank all the guests here who are there, who have been with us during this entire session. the song we have chosen is very much apt for the days, today's situation. We are facing a very tough time. This is COVID-19 pandemic, and I think we have to just wait. We have to take care of ourselves, and that COVID-19 will disappear soon. So I would like to narrate two lines from the song. It is a very beautiful duet, and most of the song is sung by Purna. In between, she told me to sing, so I am singing. It is तूफान को आना है, आकर चले जाना है, बादल है ये कुछ पल का, छाकर ढल जाना है. That means this is a very
Temporary
small
phase.
temporary phase which is come in our life. We will be very soon back to our old normal, and with this what to say message, I would like to thank everyone who is here, and I would like to request everyone to stay safe, stay healthy, and wear your masks and use sanitizers. You can play the
Okay.
song.
Yes, sure. Gangotri, I would like to request you to play the video.
एक प्यार का नगमा है, मौजों की रवानी है, तेरी मेरी कहानी है. एक प्यार का नगमा है, मौजों की रवानी है. जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है. एक प्यार का नगमा है. ला 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 ला. तूफान को आना है, आकर चले जाना है.
बादल है ये कुछ पल का, छाकर ढल जाना है.
तूफान को आना है,
आकर चले जाना है.
बादल है ये कुछ पल का,
छाकर ढल जाना है.
परछाइयाँ रह जाती निशानी है. जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है. एक प्यार का नगमा है, मौजों की रवानी है. जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है. एक प्यार का नगमा है.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Like, I loved it. It was so soothing. It soothed my ear, and I just loved it. That's all I have to say about this new song and the music. And it was a very sweet video. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. I just loved the music. That's all I have to say about it.
We are thankful to our daughter who has not come and interfered in the entire session. Come first. Oh, okay. So thank you so much, Adrija. And on behalf of all the teachers in Goa, my colleagues, Purna's colleagues, we would like to thank everyone who is present here. And we wish all the best in all the future endeavors of Treasures of Innocence. And this is our little daughter who is there
Hello.
with us. Hi, ma'am. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night. Take care of you.
Good night.
Thanks to you as well, sir. Thank you for being there with us. Thank you for giving your precious time to us. We are very glad and we are very privileged to have you guys on board with us today in this in the event of Teachers Day. And thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you.
it. Thanks to all our audience to be so patient and be with us. And we end our program here. Good evening. Have a nice night. Good night. Thank you.
Good
Namaskar.
night.